Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, April 18th. As always, we'll be doing a little bit of a recap of yesterday. Excuse me. So I'll be doing a recap of yesterday's picks. We're going to be talking a little bit of weather for today's slate in general, going over my core picks on FanDuel. And then after that, going over to the bottom half of my cheat sheet and talking about the top teams that I do have to stack for today. That cheat sheet is available on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's up on YouTube under the community tab. It's also up on Patreon with my MLB DFS notes for the daily. Those are up Monday through Friday. If you guys are interested in that, small monthly donation as well. You get access to other DFS sports as well on there. So a lot of good information that is available to be had at that for a very, very minimal price tag. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. At the pitcher position, went with Jacob DeGrom, $10,600. He got 27 points yesterday. Did end up giving him a push. He had 4 no-hit innings, but then his wrist was kind of bothering him, so they kind of took him out as a precautionary measure. If he was able to pitch more, there's no doubt that he would have paid off, but just kind of unfortunate with the injury that did happen yesterday. And then at second base, we had Marcus Semien at $3,200. Got to 24.9 points, so he was really good hit yesterday. Obviously, continued his pretty good history that he had in the past versus Jordan Lyles. And then third base, we had Nolan Arenado yesterday, a guy that had some pretty decent history in the past as well. I believe it was 4 for 10 with like 2 home runs. I can't remember who exactly was pitching against them yesterday off the top of my head. Merrill Kelly, that's who it was. And I said there was a little bit of hit or miss there with Merrill Kelly pitching since he's been pitching pretty well as of late. But Arenado was 0 for 4 yesterday, so he got 0. So he was the kind of lone miss on the day just in general. Then, at least early on in the day, we had Whit Merrifield in the lineup in the cores. He was not starting yesterday, so ended up switching over to Tommy Edman, who had some decent history in the past for Merrill Kelly. $2,600, got to 6.2 points, so he's a push. Not anybody that hurt us at all yesterday. Decent low play for his price tag. And then last but not least, we had Robbie Grossman, who had some pretty good history in the past for Jordan Lyles. $2,700. He did get to 3 points, so did end up giving him a push yesterday. Not the greatest day overall. If you had some other decent plays, you had a chance of cashing, at least min cashing at the very least. But, we'll aim for a little bit better as the day goes along. Just unfortunate, especially with Jacob DeGrom coming down with that wrist injury or wrist soreness, as you like to call it at this point in time. But that's kind of what it is at this point in time. It's kind of just a brief little recap. I'm going to try to grab a drink of water here, and then we'll get moving over to talking about some of the weather for today's slate overall. So just in general for the main slate for today, not too many weather spots. I believe the game down in St. Louis, there is a chance of rain that could maybe potentially delay the game, but probably not going to postpone it either way. It doesn't look like anything too crazy at this point in time. That is the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks game. Otherwise, everything else looks pretty good. Obviously, we did have some games canceled yesterday, kind of due to, the colder weather and everything else like that. That's always a possibility for today as well, since the weather across the country has been a little bit up and down as of, like the last week or so. So we'll just have to keep an eye out on that throughout the day. If there's anything else that does change, I'll try to leave that down in the comments as well. But with that being said, we'll get over to FanDuel, talk about the core picks that I do have listed for today. So let me bring up the FanDuel screen real quick and we'll get talking about that. So just waiting on this to load now. So at the pitcher position today, I think there's a couple different interesting options at pitcher today. You could pay up to the high end if you want to go Marcus Stroman, Spencer Strider. That's definitely available. In terms of low end pitchers, Chris Sale's a guy at $7,700 does offer some decent upside. The Twins bats are a team that can strike out a decent amount, so there is some hit or miss potential there. Ultimately ended up on Jordan Montgomery myself. If you want to go Logan Gilbert against the Brewers, that does make some sense as well too. But Montgomery was the guy that stood out the most to me out of the options that we do have available today. $9,500 going against the Arizona Diamondbacks. A team that is probably better against right-handed pitching this season. Haven't done too much into that stats, but they have a decent amount of good left-handed hitters as well. So that could kind of neutralize a little bit of that with Jordan Montgomery just in general. But he's a guy that's pitched relatively well so far this season. Fortunately, did not come up with the win in his last start when we had him in the core pick versus Pittsburgh. Still a very quality start out of him. So, guy that does offer some pretty decent upside for his price tag in tonight's slate. Limited history versus these Arizona hitters in the past and pitch against them last year. So, not too much there to be gone on, but could be an advantage for the pitcher anytime in that case as well. Then at first base, ended up on Freddie Freeman today. He is $3,600. He's 4 for 8 versus Tyler McGill in his career. So some pretty decent upside there if we want to look at Freddie Freeman's recent games as well. Obviously, when I talk, a lot of my stuff is based on past history plus a combination of recent history. Obviously, last game coming off 2 home run game, got three game hitting streak going on at this point in time. A couple zeros, a couple offers before that, but still a pretty strong start to the season for Freddie Freeman once again. Obviously, he's one of the better hitters in all of baseball, so don't really have too many concerns there with him just in general. Does like the upside that he can offer, and $3,600, that reasonable price tag for him on tonight's slate as well. Then in third base, we're going with a hitter that's been pretty hot as of late. He's playing in Coors Fields today as well. It's Brian Hayes. He's going against Jose Urena, who is the pitcher for the Rockies, probably one of the worst starters in all of baseball at this point in time. Hayes is 1 for 4 versus him in his career, so a little bit of history there, nothing too much to hang your hat on, but Brian Hayes has been hitting the ball extremely well as of late. Obviously, the Coors factor is another potential factor that could work in as well. Was hitting leadoff yesterday, not sure if that'll be the case today, but he's got a 4 game hitting streak. He's got multi-hit games in 3 out of the last 6 games. Been some pretty strong upside as of late for Brian Hayes, so hopefully that continues once again today. $2,900 price tag, nothing to sneeze at as well. Then we move down to outfield with Yordan Alvarez. He is going against the Toronto Blue Jays and Chris Bassett on the mound tonight. He is 4 for 10 with 3 home runs versus Chris Bassett in his career. So that's probably the strongest hitter versus pitcher matchup on the entire slate for today, with those 3 home runs in his history versus Bassett. Bassett's been a little bit up or down so far this season. So do like going after Yordan Alvarez today. Obviously, if we want to look at some of his recent history as well, obviously he's got 4 home runs on the season. He got 20 RBIs, which I believe is either leading the league or really close up there as well. So you see a lot of good games for him so far this season. So don't really have too much concern with Jordan Alvarez. We all know the type of upside that he can have on any given slate. And then last but not least, ultimately ended up on Chris Bryant. I like attacking this Rockies versus Pittsburgh game, especially with 2 pitchers that aren't the greatest in the world, Jose Urena and Vince Velasquez, although Velasquez did pitch pretty well out the last time, which was a matchup that I was trying to target with him coming off that ankle and everything, but props out to him that he did have that good start. But, pitching at Coors Field, it's a little bit tougher environment as well. So do like going to Chris Bryant today. He's 3 for 6 versus Vince Velasquez in his career. So some pretty strong upside there. A guy that's been doing a little bit better as of late as well. So we'll just bring him up real quick here as we're talking through it. So obviously the big last game with the 33.9 points, but he's had a pretty decent start to the season. Obviously, this is probably one of the healthiest seasons we've seen out of Chris Bryant in quite some time, which is obviously great to see since he's, I believe, a former MVP as well. So it's been a few years now, but definitely a guy that has a very high ceiling as a hitter. $3,100, pretty decent price tag too, especially given the fact that they're playing in Coors. Pretty good matchup just in general. So do like him quite a bit today. But these are the core 5 picks that I do have, at least early on for today. If anything does change throughout the day, I'll leave an updated core down in the comments as a pin comment as well. But if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed, you have $11,400 remaining, just over $2,800 per player. There's some cheaper options today, so kind of mix and match, and feel free to use the cheat sheet as much as you want. Obviously, it is free up on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, so you guys have that resource available. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the live chat, whether you're listening live now or if you drop it down in the comments throughout the day. I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible as well. But with that being said, we're going to go off of here. We're going to go to the bottom half of that cheat sheet for today, talk about some of the top stacks that I do like for today, just in general. So letting this load up here real quick. The first one that I do have is the Baltimore Orioles going against Josiah Gray of the Washington Nationals. Gray was the guy that led the league in home runs allowed last year. A little bit hit or miss start to the year for him, just in general. The Orioles hitters do not have a lot of history versus him. So if he does well, that's probably the case as to why. The only guy that's faced him before in the past is Adam Frazier, who is 2 for 2 with a home run versus him. So he could be somebody that we're looking at today. Some of these Orioles hitters have been hitting the ball pretty well as of late. So do like attacking that matchup quite a bit. And then we have the Houston Astros. Obviously, we highlighted Yordan Alvarez already. But going against Chris Bassett, it's been a hit or miss start to year for him. Pretty hittable pitcher just in general. So Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, a couple other guys looking pretty good for this Astros lineup today. Maybe we get a couple other value spots. If Dubon leads off once again, he could be a cheap option. for them just in general because he did end up leading off yesterday. And then we have the Colorado Rockies going against Vince Velasquez. We already highlighted Chris Bryant here. Jerks and Profar has pretty decent history versus him as well. If you want to attack some of those Rockies bats at home at Coors Field, definitely feel free to do so. And then on the opposite end of the game with the Pittsburgh Pirates going against Jose Urena, probably one of the worst starting pitchers at this point in time in Major League Baseball. And, playing at Coors Field could be a very good spot for this Pirates team overall, although they do not have the greatest lineup in the world. But some of these guys have been hitting the ball pretty well as of late. And then last but not least, I have the Angels going against Clark Schmidt of the Yankees. Schmidt hasn't been too great this year. Not a lot of history here for this Angels team. He did face them a little bit last year in relief, but I do like some of the upside with their hitters, and obviously they have a pretty potent lineup at that as well. But with that being said, that's kind of the top stacks that I do have for today. Core picks just in general. So that's pretty much what I have planned out at this point in time. I'm going to throw up the banner for prize picks as well. So if you are brand new to prize picks, it's a parlay building site. You can build different lines, whether it's MLB props, you can throw in NBA props, you can throw in any sport that you want as long as it's up on there, which they have pretty much everything at this point in time. If you use this promo code when you first sign up, you get 100% first match deposit up to $100. Helps you out just a little bit, helps me out as well. I try to throw up some prize pick props on my Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. When I do have the chance to do so, definitely be sure to check those out as well. If you guys have any questions related to prize picks as well, feel free to ask at any point in time, whether it's down in the comments, whether it's messaging me on Twitter. Definitely be more than happy to help you guys in that regard as well. But with that being said, that's really all I have for today. Once again, if you guys do have any remaining questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. And I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. If there's any updates to the core, once again, I will leave that update down there as a pinned comment. And then I will also be trying to get some of the starting lineups out tonight as well. I'm not sure how much I'm going to get as much tonight, but we'll get as many as I can get out there prior to everything else going on today. But if you guys do have any questions, always feel free to ask. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Primarily MLB DFS right now. We got one more week of XFL DFS going on. USFL DFS just started last week, so I'll be covering a little bit of that as well. If that's something you're into, definitely be sure to check that out. Obviously, that's on the DraftKings side. MLB DFS primarily covering on the FanDuel side, but if you guys do have DraftKings MLB DFS questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I can check it out for you as well. But with that being said, that's really all I have for today's video, for today's live stream. Do appreciate everybody that did take the time out of your day, whether you're watching live or on replay, to watch this video, support this video. Definitely does mean a lot to me. And I hope that each and every one of you has a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight as well.